Much. Well, gold, as we've seen, is retreating now, suffering its biggest one-day percent loss in 5 weeks. So, Todd, if stocks keep going up, is gold going to keep going down?
You know, David, gold really reflects the strength of the dollar and what interest rates are into. It's more related to the money versus the stock market. And I think if Hillary's going to win, it's going to keep more pressure on gold because it's going to keep the dollar stronger based on our monetary policy. So I think you're going to see gold probably come down here to 1,200 or so to find some support before we'll see some movement back to the upside. I think what you saw last week was a thought that the dollar was going to become weaker, making gold much stronger because of the interest rate policy. And I think that's what we're seeing here is an overall look into gold. And I think gold will continue to fall. And after tomorrow, we might see some resiliency. But I think you'll see 1,250 to 1,200 before it starts to move back higher again.
All right, Todd, stick around. Let's bring in the rest of the panel. Liz Peek of the Fiscal Times, and we have Kevin Kelly of Recon Capital Partners. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Liz, let me start with you. I mean, I watched yesterday the futures take off when we saw that FBI news. Market loving Hillary Clinton. I mean, if they feel like she's the candidate of Wall Street, she's given those speeches to Goldman Sachs. They know she loves them. She's not going to change anything. This is good for rich people and good for the market. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's clearly a status quo celebration, right? We have Hillary Clinton. I guess the market thinks she's going to win. I think her economic policies actually should take the market lower, but that's not what the market's saying today. I also would argue that the market's looking at the very high probability that Republicans keep control of the Senate. So it is truly a do-nothing 4 years ahead with a presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton, who is promising 4 more years, and I think that's exactly what we get if the Republicans take the Senate.
I mean, Kevin, truth be told, economic growth has been incredibly slow over the last 8 years, but the market never looks that far down the road. It's always about instant gratification, and it's looking at a potential Hillary win. Nothing changes. Everything is very predictable. Where are we going wrong with that?
Well, the market is actually celebrating this because Donald Trump has consistently been vocal against the current monetary policies of easy money.
Very true.
And who likes that? Obviously, the corporations listed on the exchanges. So now that they know we're in a lower for longer environment, they benefit from cheap money. While Donald Trump wanted Janet Yellen out, he wants the Fed to normalize rates. That includes unwinding their $4 trillion balance sheet. Hillary is not that way. She's more accommodative in easy monetary policies because she does like the status quo. So I think that's what it's celebrating right now. But also investors need to take into note that now they won't have, no matter who gets in, no one will have their first 100 days compromised by an investigation. So I think that was part of it as well. So the overhang of a constitutional crisis has been removed from the market.
Todd, does anyone care about long-term economic growth except me?
Well, I certainly do, and I'm certainly tired of watching the no growth, no jobs environment and where we simply live on free money. I mean, you know, they keep printing money, and really what they're doing is they're issuing a secondary on the cash that's in my pocket because they're taking away the value. So all they're doing is taxing me in another way, and I'm tired of paying for everybody else's mistakes. I don't want to pay for my own, but let's see some real growth before we give away more free money. Let's really build a stronger economy instead of allowing them to continue just to create money out of thin air, which really the middle class ends up paying for anyways.
Todd, you and I are going to keep dreaming, my friend.
Todd, the deficit is huge. The debt's never been higher than it is, but it's out of sight to most Americans. It's out of sight, out of mind. It has an effect. It has an effect on our growth. It has an effect on a whole lot of things. But because people don't necessarily see it until it's too late, it's not a problem.
And that is the problem, David. When you create a legalized Ponzi scheme, you continue to function new money to satisfy old debt, and you grow this out of control, the debt becomes a problem. And the failure of all markets is always debt when it comes down to it. It was the same problem in '08, and this will be the problem when we finally face the fact that there's so much debt in this country, and we can't get around it and we can't print it. That's when the markets are going to decide it's time to sell off.
So far, with low interest rate, almost zero interest rates right now, the 13 trillion, there's 20 trillion in debt, 13 trillion is in public hands right now. That's money that has to be paid out by the Treasury in debt service payment. It comes to about $223 billion with zero interest rates. When those interest rates begin to tick up, that's going to become a huge part of our budget, is it not?
Yeah, well, that's the issue. That's why it has been invisible, as you say, is that, yes, we're closing in on $20 trillion in debt, but interest rates are near zero. So, and remember, we had trillion-dollar deficits for several years in a row when Obama first took office. The good news is that those came down, but right now the deficit is beginning to turn higher. And as interest rates go higher, which, by the way, I think is going to happen. I mean, one of Hillary Clinton's closest advisors, Tony James, the head of Blackstone, wrote a very cogent piece recently about why interest rates should go higher. I think there's going to be pressure to raise rates. I think Janet Yellen's going to have to follow through on that. And then we're going to begin to see the impact on the government.
Well, it's 6% right now. Our debt service is 6% in the budget. Kevin, if that goes up to over 10% or higher, what happens to the markets? How do they respond?
Well, the markets are going to see that the government can't allocate capital and investment efficiently, and so we will no longer grow even at the abysmal 2% rate on a normalized basis that we are now. But the government actually needs to address the $55 trillion of unfunded liabilities that are set to hit the balance sheet in 2018 with Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. We are an aging demographic, and the government needs to address that first and not actually have to worry about this deficit, because that'll affect us even worse.
You guys are scaring the hell out of me, so I need some coffee. Howard Schultz pointing the finger at the media. The Starbucks CEO sending a memo out to his employees telling them that in the wake of this divisive and ugly election cycle, ignore the, quote, hatred on cable news and instead practice dignity and respect. Liz, when's he going to go back to just selling coffee?
Good question.
Right. By the way, I think coffee makes you jittery and more likely to be, irritated.
That's right. It's his fault. Thank you for that, Liz. It is his fault.
It's too much coffee out there.
Right. That's exactly what it is. Perfect. Kevin, what do you think? Is it Howard Schultz's fault and not ours?
Yeah, I think it's his fault because we feel guilty now even saying Merry Christmas. You can't even say Happy Holidays. None of it's on the cups anymore, so you can't even express free speech.
Yeah, Todd, I mean, he should go back to worrying about his baristas, worrying about the coffee, figuring out more ways that he can sell you a cup of coffee for $8, whatever he can do. Why take a shot at cable news?
He wants to make it $9 because he doesn't make enough money out of that chain yet. I mean, look, the bottom line is it's not his job and his part, and I think that I think he stepped over the line to his employees. They were trying to express his opinion on them, and I think that was the wrong thing to do. That's my opinion from here. I don't think that he should have done anything. I think you vote for who you want and keep your mouth shut, because freedom of speech is what we have.
Yeah, Liz, let's not forget, I mean, he was on WikiLeaks. He was on the list of VP potential candidates. I mean, he's loving them.
Yeah, and by the way, he has actually suggested sort of perhaps in the beginning kind of amusingly that he might run for office.
Yeah.
Politics might be in his future. So this kind of messaging, I think, positions him for that. But as you say, let's get back to better coffee.
Let's have a huge tax on Starbucks and see how that fixes business. I like that. All right, guys, thank you.